couple more minutes, but that's fine. We'll go live. Hello, video peoples.
Hello, video peoples.
Hello.
And we are going to have a shorter post show today. I apologize for that ahead of time, but I've got to jet to the Comedy Film Nerds podcast as soon as I'm done.
Well, that is a good excuse.
Tom,
and we started early, so
I don't know how many times we have to tell you this podcasting thing is not going to take off, Tom. Like,
and just give up.
You should really limit yourself.
Plan B for sure.
Yeah, the Good Day Internet folks got extra pre-show to make up for it. So if you are a Good Day Internet subscriber, you can go do that.
Yeah.
And then you know what? I don't give Creative Vast Arts enough praise. I know there's only less than 100 people that do it, but he goes and takes the Good Day Internet audio, marries it to the video, and then uploads it privately and puts the link in the Discord and on Patreon. So if people are like, oh, but I want to listen to Good Day Internet on YouTube, they can.
Yes, and I get those notifications in my email, and every day I'm like, that's so nice. Such a nice thing you're doing. Oh, my informed daily digest has come in. What's in my mailbox? It's nothing good.
Informed?
Yeah, it's USPS will, they send you an image of all your mail.
I like that service.
Huh.
I love it.
It's just a scan of the envelope, the outside of the envelope, so you can know like, oh, it's just junk mail today. I'm not going to worry about it. Or like, oh, my check is coming. Excellent.
Totally, yeah. Because if you're expecting something, that's when I'm like, oh, okay, there's that.
And it won't scan it, but it'll give you links to tracking numbers if you're getting a package.
Mm-hmm. Well, somebody else named Sarah Lane, not me. Somebody in the UK apparently bought some ceramic pots. And she was informed via my email that the pots are on their way.
So this is a very annoying thing. I was trying to...
Long-time fans of the show have heard Roger go off on this one before.
I get so many... Okay, so it's bad enough I get other people's emails in my inbox, but I can't even register for like the DMV site using my email because someone used it already, and now it's been banned or suspended because of something that I don't know what, because that wasn't me who signed up with that email.
That's so annoying.
Yeah,
now I gotta make a different account or something.
There was, and I've complained about this before. Just you got to call my name, you're gonna get other people's emails. But there's it's like swimming lessons in North Carolina, one of the Carolinas, and I kept getting these invoices like you've been invoiced on Square. I was like, I'm kind of looking. I'm like, okay, I don't see a transaction, but I kept emailing them like, am I being charged or something? Like, I've never even been to that state. I don't know how to swim. Like, for sure, not me. And the woman kept writing me back like, so strange. I'm sorry. I'll make sure that this gets fixed. But because when it's money based, you're like, let's just make sure this isn't coming out of anything that actually belongs to me. And then this has been going on for well over a year, and she finally got really annoyed with me, like, you're not getting charged. Or I'm like, okay, but whoever you're trying to charge,
could you stop?
I have her invoices. Like, would she be the person that should be getting these?
Couldn't you stop sending the wrong person the invoice?
Like, you know what? When their kid comes in for lessons, why don't you talk to them and say you gave us the wrong email address?
Right.
I used to get
like they're taking swimming lessons.
I think it was the same person. I would get email for a dentist and a car dealer in Florida, and then I would also get. I would get like the weekly minutes of the architectural committee for a church in Minnesota.
Were they interesting?
No, I never looked at it.
Was it for a new dental office?
No, the dentist was in Florida.
Well, I was trying to combine all.
Yeah, it didn't. I don't think you can combine.
Use dentures at used car prices.
Hey, you know what we can do though? Daily Tech News Show. Who's in?
Me.
Really?
I am.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I guess.
All right.
There can only be one Eeyore, and that's me.
You're already here.
Yeah. I'm already sitting in the chair, got everything turned on, and Might as well hang out for the next half hour or so.
A man wants a name from our Patreon, and I'm going to add it here shortly. And then, Sarah, could you read it?
Yes. Can and will.
Do we have Scott coming on tomorrow?
Yes.
Okay, because we didn't have anything at the bottom, so just make sure it didn't get missed.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. And Scott is often on our bonus show as well.
Yes.
So it works out nicely.
And he will be again tomorrow. Okay.
Rhymes with Kevin, you think?
I was going to say Javon.
Okay. All right.
But, your mileage may vary. All right, here we go.
All right.
3, 2.
Javon Phillips has supported independent tech news directly for 5 years. Be like Javon and become a DTNS member at patreon.com/DTNS.
Wait, we have to do that over again. I'm sorry. I wrote it. I didn't change it. He hasn't done it for 5 years.
Oh.
You're like, what? I just signed up.
5 minutes.
I forgot to change it. Okay, so here we go. All right. And let's try it again. Take 2.
All right.
3, 2.
Javon Phillips has supported independent tech news directly for about a day. Why not be like Javon and become a DTNS member at patreon.com/DTNS.
This is the Daily Tech News for Tuesday, May 21st, 2019. In Los Angeles, I'm Tom Merritt.
And from Studio Feline, I'm Sarah Lane.
And from somewhat overcast skies, I am Roger Chang, the show's producer.
We've got more Huawei news for you today. We tried to make a Huawei sandwich. All right, we've got a little non-Huawei news at the top, then a bunch of Huawei news in the middle, and then some non-Huawei news for the bread at the bottom. But it's all important. It's good stuff to know and try to understand what's going on as things get a little crazy in the supply chain world of technology. So let's start with a few tech things you should know.
Sony Interactive Entertainment President and CEO Jim Ryan told investors, "The streaming era is upon us and is about to begin a period of rapid growth." He said 5.6 million PS4 owners use Remote Play. Ryan did say that the next generation of PlayStation will have a disk drive.
Yeah, take that, Google. Mozilla launched Firefox 67 for Windows, Mac, Linux, and Android. The browser includes faster startup, deprioritizing lesser used features to save you on some memory, suspending unused tabs, crypto mining blockers, and fingerprinting. Firefox 67 also adds password saving and support for extensions to your private browsing mode, and adds voice input in the Android search widget. For desktop users, the toolbar is now fully keyboard accessible, and web render support for NVIDIA comes on Windows 10. The desktop version is available for download at firefox.com, and existing users can upgrade automatically. The Android version is rolling out on Google Play.
Man, considering I have 400 unused tabs open at all times, it's probably time for me to switch back to Firefox. Huawei launched its new Honor 20 series of smartphones in London on Tuesday. The Honor 20 Pro runs on Huawei's Kirin 980 processor with quad rear cameras, side-mounted fingerprint scanners, and has a 6.26-inch display with a hole punch for the front-facing camera. The Honor 20 Pro, Honor 20, and Honor 20 Lite will sell for €599. That's about $669, €499, and €299, respectively. Huawei says the models are certified by Google, so will come with Google Apps. However, they're released too late to receive OS-level updates from Google while US restrictions exist. Huawei will have to provide those as they appear on the Android open source project.
And Alphabet-owned Verily announced a strategic alliance with pharmaceutical companies Novartis, Sanofi, Otsuka, and Pfizer to help it expand its reach in the medical studies market. Verily wants to make it easier to enroll and participate in trials, and then be able to combine data across sources like electronic medical records and health tracking devices. Verily uses Google Ads to find patients based on health-related searches and suggests that they join company projects. All right. Since we last met, the U.S. Department of Commerce has had a marginal change of heart. Sarah, tell us about it.
Monday afternoon, the U.S. Department of Commerce granted Huawei a general license to buy some U.S. goods until August 19th in order to maintain existing telecoms networks and provide software updates to Huawei phones. The move is intended to give telecom operators time to make other arrangements. This will allow Google to provide security updates to Huawei for its existing Android-based phones. Otherwise, Huawei would have to delay as it waits for security updates to appear on the open source project that's behind Android. Huawei is still prohibited from buying US-made hardware and software to make new products, and the Commerce Department will reevaluate the extension in 90 days, perhaps extending it beyond that, perhaps not. Huawei CEO Ren Zhengfei said that the US underestimates Huawei's capabilities.
Oh yeah, we're going to get into that a little bit, but the upshot here is a little bit of the pressure is off. I don't know if Huawei is allowed to stockpile parts under this. I don't think they are. I'm not sure if Huawei is allowed to provide those Android updates to new phones like the Honor phones we just talked about. We don't think they are. There might be a way for them to get around it. There's still a lot of details to be worked out on this, but it is a softening of the move from yesterday, which probably has more meaning in the world of trying to figure out trade negotiations than it does in consumer tech. But for the moment, it's good news if you hold a Huawei phone already. If you already own one, it means that you should be able to get those Google security updates for Android at the same time that you normally have. They will not be delayed, and you'll continue to have access to all your Google Play services and everything.
You mentioned stockpiling. Is there some sort of a number where it's like, now you guys are you're buying too much, more than you would need for 90 days type thing?
That is the question, right? Is sort of like what they want to do, what the Commerce Department has said particularly is, we want ISPs to figure out a transition off of Huawei equipment. However, we're giving them 90 days to figure that out. And so during those 90 days, we'll allow Huawei to sell them parts to fix and maintain the units they have right now. So, a card goes bad, they can order a replacement card from Huawei, that kind of thing. But how do they tell? How do they enforce that? That's the devil's in the details there.
Yeah.
The Verge took the list of components from iFixit's teardown of the Huawei P30 Pro to give us an idea of what kind of parts come from the US and where it could get replacements once that stockpile of parts runs out. This is just the P30 Pro, so this isn't representative of every phone from Huawei. Different phones use different parts. But for the P30 Pro, the Gorilla Glass comes from the US, so that would have to be replaced and could be replaced by Dragon Trail from Japan's AGC Asahi Glass, which is also used in the Pixel 3a, so there's even a major phone out there with it. Micron storage could be replaced by Toshiba or Samsung, or possibly even be replaced in-house. HiSilicon has supposedly been developing some external storage, some SD card kind of stuff, which could be adapted. Skyworks and Qorvo networking cards might be the hardest. Now, those aren't used in every model of Huawei, but in the ones used in the United States or sold in North America and Europe for LTE, those are going to be the harder ones to replace. They might need to be developed in-house. And of course, Android, which, as we just heard, right now, they can continue providing some security updates. Also, they can just use the Android open source project, which delays updates from what they would get from Google. But Huawei is supposedly developing its own operating system as well.
Yeah, and that's the whole, we were talking about this yesterday, like, okay, well, how much is the company bluffing because they have to, seem like they're strong? Like, we knew this was coming. We've already thought about this. How easy, in theory, it's like, okay, well, there are other companies who make the same kind of technology that Huawei would be interested in outside the US. But in practice, how easy is it to, change all of that supply chain?
Yeah, and it sounds like in some cases, it might be easy to find the replacement part. Remember, there's also the difficulty of changing your supply chain, of validating that a part works well in the system you've put it in, and putting it through testing and making sure you can support it, and your drivers are there for your software. It's not as easy as just swapping out the part. Although with things like the glass, maybe it becomes a little easier. It's never simple. There are also parts that are going to be difficult to replace, and that's where this comes down to, is can they keep going after they eliminate their stockpile? They are putting on the bold face saying, yeah, we will not have any problems, don't worry, we'll keep delivering you security updates, we'll keep delivering you phones. Huawei is not saying anything that makes it look like it is worried in the least, which is the right thing. That is what the stockholders want to hear, for sure.
And I will add that the biggest hurdle will, of course, be the OS, right? Like, delivering a software product is one thing, but maintaining and iterating it successively to the satisfaction of your customer base, that's the tricky part.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's all tricky, but yeah, you're right. That is not an easy thing to do, which makes me think they'll want to stay with the Android open source project, which is what most phones in China do. It's what Huawei does in China already. So,
The Verge notes that while Microsoft has not made any statement about licensing Windows to Huawei, the Mate X Pro Windows laptop is no longer available in the Microsoft Store as of this weekend. Mate 10. Huawei uses Windows on its consumer laptops, in its network servers, and in a hybrid cloud solution for Microsoft's Azure stack.
my interpretation of this is that Microsoft is being very cagey. They don't want to make any announcements about Windows until they have to. And so until they need to provide a new license agreement, it's possible that Huawei has an agreement that's already signed that allows them to install a certain number of Windows, and it was signed before these restrictions went into place. So Microsoft doesn't have to take any action or take on any liability for it. And at which point they can hold off and see if this ends. I get the feeling that Microsoft is hoping that this just all goes away before they ever have to make an announcement about that sort of thing. But just to hedge their bets, they pull the MacBook X off the store, so they're not seen as selling something from Huawei, which might muddy the waters. The U.S. has issued an alert warning consumers that Chinese-made unmanned aerial vehicles, aka quadcopters, aka drones, could pose a security risk to U.S. businesses and other organizations. The alert did not name companies, but China's DJI holds around 70% of the U.S. market for UAVs. DJI said it gives its customers complete control over their data, adding, for government and critical infrastructure customers that require additional assurance, we provide drones that do not transfer data to DJI or through the internet, and our customers can enable all the precautions that the Department of Homeland Security recommends. However, despite all those assurances, the U.S. Army prohibited troops from using DJI drones starting in August 2017, which was the same month that the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Department accused DJI of providing U.S. critical infrastructure and law enforcement data to the Chinese government. So there's a little dispute of opinion between DJI and parts of the U.S. government. DJI, since that day, since August 2017, has introduced a privacy mode that prevents any data from being uploaded to the internet if you so desire. U.S. states are all using UAVs for things like road and bridge inspections, as well as creating complex farming programs and the like.
Yeah, so I guess at this point, do you trust DJI when they say, we'll give you a super secure mode if you don't want anything transferred to the internet, don't worry. Is there any scenario where that would not be true?
I think that one of the things that I would tend to want to say is, well, these things are fairly well audited. And if the privacy mode wasn't blocking off internet connection, if there was a backdoor, enough eyes are looking at this sort of thing that I would guess it would be found. But that sort of rhetoric doesn't seem to change this thing. There has also never been evidence that there is a Huawei backdoor. And the only evidence we've ever had of security problems in Huawei are the normal security vulnerabilities, some of them very bad, as we've talked about in the UK study, but the kinds of things that are just bugs and aren't phoning home. They aren't backdoors that malicious actors take advantage of on purpose. So you could argue that, like, okay, well, maybe the Chinese government is taking advantage of those vulnerabilities the way that hackers and attackers do. And that's possible, but that's quite a difference from saying it was designed in, which there's never been any evidence of. So I'm saying there's never been evidence of that at Huawei. That hasn't changed the U.S. approach to Huawei. Why would the lack of evidence with DJI change the U.S. approach to DJI?
It shouldn't, really. I mean,
I would guess it would. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. The story gets more interesting every day.
Well, the Huawei meat in our sandwich is over now.
It was good.
Yeah.
It depends on what kind of sandwich you like. I liked it. Apple announced the 15-inch MacBook Pro will now come with 8-core and 6-core processors that should make it run twice as fast as the previous quad-core models and 40% faster than the 6-core. The 13-inch MacBook Pro with Touch Bar will now come with Intel's 8th gen quad-core processors. Apple also announced 3 things regarding its keyboards. This should be good news for some of us who have had keyboard issues. A new material in the keyboard mechanism should reduce double type and the no type issues. All butterfly keyboards are now part of the keyboard service program, so you've got more care there. And it's promising faster repairs for those who do have issues anyway. Older MacBooks needing repair may get the new improved material as well.
Both of us, I have had MacBook Pro keyboard problems. Mine were a long time ago, a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Mine would spark when when I hit certain letters. Yeah.
Spark,
Yeah.
coming right out of it.
Yeah, just a little blue spark every once in a while.
My keyboard issues are not that big a deal, but I've got, the backlight just decides that it wants to take a nap sometimes.
Oh yeah, I had that too. That's actually why I got it replaced. The spark I
Yeah.
couldn't reproduce, but the backlight going out, they replaced it, and then the new one didn't spark anymore.
Yeah.
I never had the no type or the double type issue though.
Me either. Although I'm actually using a MacBook Pro for the show that also has a display that no longer works, so I have to use an external monitor. So this is a 2016 late era 2016 Touch Bar 13-inch model that is known to be problematic. But anything that could be covered under an extended warranty, which Apple historically can really drag its feet on, even though there are many message board issues that make it clear that it's a known issue. It's if it applies to you, then it's a good thing. Or if you're in the market for a new MacBook Pro, might be the time. So
here you go. Butterfly keyboards now part of the keyboard service program. So even your older models, you are now covered under this, which is good. That is a good move by Apple. It's promising faster repairs and it detailed a few of the measures that will allow for that. Which devil's in the details there, proofs in the pudding, all those cliches. But that's a great thing to promise. I hope they follow through on it. New material in the keyboard mechanism that should reduce the problems. That's the one where it's like, okay, you put in the little the lining before. They didn't really make a big deal out of that when they didn't even admit they did it, but they did it. New material. They won't tell us what the material is. I'm most doubtful about that when they're like, I don't want to tell you what we did, but we did some new material. We did the science, and now the science will save you.
Like what? Why can't we know the material? Is it not a trustworthy material?
Is it like a new space age patented material that you can't explain because it's a trade secret? If that's an advance in material science that big, then that's amazing. You should probably tout that and just not tell me what it is. But that's not what they're saying. So I don't know. Yeah.
The U.S. Postal Service started the first of 5 round trips moving packages between Phoenix and Dallas. I think it's about 1,000 miles, using autonomous trucks from San Diego startup Too Simple. In a press release about the 2-week pilot, the USPS said it could possibly use a future class of vehicles to improve service, reduce emissions, and save money. Too Simple will have a safety driver behind the wheel during these tests and also an engineer in the passenger seat who's kind of monitoring everything. The USPS spends more than $4 billion per year on highway trucking services, and costs have been rising due to a shortage of drivers.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people realize this.
I didn't until today.
When we talk about like robots taking jobs, sometimes they're not taking jobs. They're doing things that not enough people want to do, and this is one of them. So I don't want to be glib and say, and so truck drivers don't need to worry, because maybe they do, but it's a little early to worry, especially when this is supplementary. They're doing 5 round trips for 2 weeks, and then they're going to stop and reevaluate. But it's a step along that road, and it does show, to my mind, that trucking and freight is probably, just like enterprise is for augmented reality, trucking and freight is probably where we'll see autonomous driving technology really become a useful thing first.
I know that they say, hey, listen, costs have been rising because not enough people are driving our trucks, so we're going to get the robots to do it. Will the savings be passed along to us eventually? Hard to say, but you can't. It won't happen unless you try, right?
That's not the way it works, right?
Right.
It's not. They don't like. This is what I'm just going to go off on. I'll try to limit my rant here, but it's not like everyone says, well, it costs this much to make a widget, and so we will always sell it for 5 cents more than that, no matter what it costs. That's never the way it works. It's always like, how much more than what it costs us can we sell it for? That's what's called margin. That's why when you talk about Amazon was operating at such thin margins, they were not charging a lot more than it cost them to run for a long time. So no, the costs might not be passed along to us, but they also might be if the pressure has been not to use the Postal Service, which has been the problem, and lowering the price could bring more people in, and allowing for cheaper delivery would allow them to lower the price and maintain their margin or even increase it a little, then yeah, that could pass the savings along to us, which would be a good thing.
Watch out, Amazon. USPS coming for you.
Yeah, it made me think of Amazon, didn't it? Because you're like, oh, all we ever hear is like Amazon's going to do the drone delivery, except they're not. Lots of other companies are. Amazon's going to do the self-driving trucks, except they're not. The U.S. Postal Service is in this particular case. So I'm not saying Amazon won't ever do this stuff, but they don't even need to be first, right?
No.
And I mean, the knockoff effect really is once this technology is used with, especially with a governmental agency, and they can scale it to where they can actually leverage the automation into at least maybe not lowering costs, but stabilizing so they don't see an increase year after year. That could bring down the price of the technology, but also encourage other companies. Hey, if the U.S. Postal Service says this works and it's working for them, why can't it use for Joe Blow, short haul freight or, moving company?
And our intern Amos points out the USPS has run at a budget deficit for some time. So, if it could just reduce that, that would be great. Finally, new imaging methods combined with a better understanding of the chemistry of fur and feather pigments has let scientists know what color a 3 million-year-old mouse's fur was. We'll explain why that's important. Reddish brown with a white underbelly, if you're wondering, is what the color was. Fur color comes from two kinds of melanin. Eumelanin, which produces the black and dark brown, combined with pheomelanin, which does the red and yellow. Now, eumelanin holds up over time. A lot of time when they tell you what color bird feathers were, or even some dinosaur feathers, it's because they can find the eumelanin. But if the fur or the feathers relied on pheomelanin, they can't see it. It breaks down and it's gone. University of Manchester geochemist Roy Wogelius and his colleagues determined that tiny traces of zinc do remain behind after broken down pheomelanin turns into sulfur, and then the sulfur disappears. So a technique called Synchrotron X-ray fluorescence imaging causes interactions that can be used to determine the patterns of metal traces. This is a kind of imaging they've been using for a long time, but they haven't been looking at the effects of the interactions with metals. So they started looking at it and figured out, oh, when it's zinc left from pheomelanin, it interacts this way, which lets us tell where the pheomelanin was, which then combined with the traces of eumelanin allow us to determine what color the fur was that was on this mouse. Now, has to be a pretty well-preserved mouse, which this 3 million year old mouse was. And there may be hundreds of these, certainly not thousands or millions of these kinds of fossils that are preserved well enough to tell this. But that's enough to be able to start making some advances on telling what these older animals looked like. And if you want more on this, read Kiona N. Smith's article at Ars Technica. It's really good.
Yeah, my first sort of stupid question when I was trying to wrap my brain around this story earlier was like, okay, well, I mean, besides the oh, okay, it was a red and white mouse. Like, how does that change anything? But I assume it would have a lot to do with how, a species would evolve to escape prey. And it gives us a lot more context on, how things may have changed over the last million years.
Yeah. And Amos was telling us in our pre-show that one of the things that you can tell is a certain amount of intelligence. If there are parts of the coat or parts of the feathers that can be displayed for mating purposes or to avoid being prey purposes, that will tell you that this animal had a little higher level of intelligence because they had to know when to display the right parts of their coat or their feathers. So all kinds of things you can tell from this sort of thing.
Topology, you can determine roughly climate, right? I mean, if you have a reddish brown animal, it's probably not living in a tundra or area with heavy amounts of snow. So it
had to lay on its back all the time in the tundra,
or that
had to hide really well.
Yeah.
But it's fascinating. Like, going back to the birds, one of the things we realized 15, 20 years ago is that birds see color differently than we do. They see an ultraviolet shift. And so when you look at it that way, all these things help determine not just what the animal looked like, but what the surroundings were. And that can kind of lead to all sorts of things. Like you can kind of maybe extrapolate climate, temperature, how long the day was, stuff like that. So it's really fascinating. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think the thing that brings this into a tech show is the fact that they're using a technique that has been around, but finding a new way to use it. That synchrotron X-ray fluorescence imaging. Say it 3 times.
Synchrotron.
If you want to get all the tech headlines each day in about 5 minutes, say dailytechheadlines.com 3 times, and you'll be no, you actually have to go there and subscribe. But you can also just search Daily Tech Headlines in your favorite podcatcher, and it'll show up there as well. It's on the Amazon Echo. It's on the Google Home. Get it all over the place. Find out more at dailytechheadlines.com.
Speaking of headlines, you know who helps us with our headlines every day? In fact, they did this morning. Everybody who participates in our subreddit. You can submit stories and vote on others at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. We're also on Facebook. If you like Facebook groups, facebook.com/groups/Daily Tech News Show is your new favorite. All right, let's move on to Chris Christensen, the amateur traveler, who has a niche hotel booking site for people who might want to stay near a subway.
This is Chris Christensen from Amateur Traveler with another Tech in Travel Minute. I haven't used a travel agent in decades, and so I book, like most of you, probably online. I tend to use hotels.com, which gives me a free night for every 10 I book, or bookings.com, which is the other big site. But occasionally I'll run across a niche site that is interesting, and one of these is hotelsnearthemetro.com. And this is a site that if you're going to a major city with a metro system, you can find a hotel near a metro station, and it will show you all the hotels and how far they are from the nearest metro station. Sometimes a niche site just answers the question you have. I'm Chris Christensen from Amateur Traveler.
You know, at first I thought he meant sandwiches, but I think this might be better.
I actually, this comes in real handy, especially if you're going somewhere where the weather's not going to be nice. Being near a subway, I'm also a fan of subways and metro systems in general, could really come in handy.
Yeah, I always look at my hotels and see if they're near train stations for this very reason. So I might make some good use of this. All right, let's check out the mailbag.
Let's do it. Jeff wrote in hoping for an answer to a 5G conversation that we've been having. We keep kicking it around on the show. Jeff says, do we really need new spectrum every time we move to a new G? It's never been clear to me how much of each generation's speed up comes from improvements in protocol versus inherent benefits from the new spectrum. Could the next G's use software-defined radio, SDR, such that as the G after that comes along, we can stay on the same spectrums as carriers push out new SDR definitions to all devices. Over the course of a few months, staged rollouts, we could be on Super G Plus advanced evolution together. As the carriers phase out the current legacy networks, the spectrum could be added to the SDR network to broaden capacity. I'm sure some frequencies would be better than others in this case, but that's not all that different than it is now. What's wrong with this approach? I recognize that this reduces the economic motivation for network equipment makers to develop future networks, but is there a technical reason that I'm not understanding?
Yeah, I imagine if this was easy, we'd probably see a bigger push to do it. He's talking about using software-defined radio to obviate the need to just get clear spectrum for things, because you can share spectrum that way. I know that one of the reasons that we need new spectrum is because there are capacity issues. So you have to sometimes, for a protocol to work, it just has to be on a different spectrum. I also know that older spectrum doesn't get released as fast as maybe you think. There are still 2G uses out there, so you have to wait a long time for spectrum to be released. There was a whole battle over getting rid of the licenses for the white space between television channels. Because the interference between television channels on digital broadcasts is not as much as it was on analog broadcasts. But all that said, that doesn't really bear on his idea of using software-defined radio to create new capacity. That is outside my area of expertise. But if there's anybody working in the telecom industry who, and I know you're out there, who can say, like, this is why we could or why we couldn't, or what the challenges are with software-defined radio, send us an email, feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. Yesterday I made the mistake of saying we had 5 more people than last month. Now we have 1 more person than last month because a bunch of you didn't listen and left, or at least 4 of you did. So If you are thinking of becoming a member of DTNS, why not do it now? We've got a new bonus episode looking back at 5 years ago. We just look at the actual Daily Tech News Show lineups from 5 years ago and talk about what was going on then. That's for folks at the $10 and up level. We've got all kinds of Live With It content planned coming from Sarah Lane. We've got Roger's column coming out on Thursday, and that's all available for members at patreon.com/DTNS.
We also love your feedback. Our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. Keep them coming. If you can join us live, well, good news for you. We're live Monday through Friday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 2030 UTC. And you can find out more at dailytechnewsshow.com/live.
Back tomorrow with Scott Johnson. Talk to you then.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Hey, John, welcome to the live show. I'm glad you could join us.
Hey, John.
Good to see you. I'm going to give you a little thumb up right now in the Discord. So, what should we call this show?
Not late for dinner.
You say that all the time.
I've said that
Not late
once
for dinner of a Huawei sandwich.
Yeah. Huawei sandwich? Yes, please.
It's for dinner. What's for dinner? We're getting trolled for my thank you for your 5 years. I mean minutes, Javon.
Oh, yeah. Javon has been a very loyal member.
We could do Huawei sandwich, I guess. What else we got here? Being well preserved helps. OG versus new G Spectrum. Way a lot of Huawei news, spelled WEI. It's Huawei news while the way down. Where there's a will, there's Huawei.
Well,
Apple
it
did the
appears that
science.
way.
I actually like Huawei sandwich. Should we do that?
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. It's kind of what it was. What are the toppings? What's in a Huawei sandwich anyway?
Flowers, lots
Besides,
of flowers.
Components.
Well, it depends. Up until today, it was Gorilla Glass and
right.
Qualcomm chips
Yeah.
on the side. But now it's like we don't have the Qualcomm chips.
Yeah.
Can we get you some high silicon chips on
It
the
will-
side? And you're
It
like,
will have
Some
it
of
will ha-
Apple's new material.
what's an edible flower? It's dandelion. It's not a flower.
yeah, you can eat a
Yeah,
dandelion.
you can put that in.
I don't.
Huawei is like flower. Like Hua is flower in Chinese.
Oh, I see where you're
so
going.
they would put some sort of
I don't
vegetable.
think we don't eat dandelion. Is that dandelion a thing that people
Yeah,
eat?
you can eat it. Most people
Yeah.
don't.
Not gonna hurt
most
you.
people make stuff out of it, like dandelion wine or something.
Oh,
But you
that's
can
true.
actually fry up dandelion and the greens. The leaves are often even sold in Whole Foods and stuff.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
It
Or you
grows
see it
on
on
your
the
lawn,
menu.
but we'll charge you $8 for it.
Yeah, it's organic.
But yeah, because your lawn probably has pesticides.
Not my lawn.
Not my
There's
lawn.
nothing on it at
Yeah.
this point.
Does
Sure.
your landlord?
We
I know
are
you don't have a
clean.
landlord, Roger, but Sarah, does your landlord do pest control?
Mm.
Oh, I do pest control.
I mean,
Yeah, well then
I hope so.
your dandelions might have pesticide on them.
oh well.
Those are
My
nutrients.
my yard doesn't have any dandelions in it,
Well, that's
so
really weird
that-
because mine does.
Do you have moles like burrowing animals?
No.
that?
no, not in my yard. I don't. I mean, there might be pest control going on, but I just nobody ever told me about it.
Yeah.
So GDI, what do you think?
Bringing back web rings has been crappy Comcast speakers because they're in the bathroom.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Crappy Comcast speakers.
Yeah, because we were talking in Good Day Internet about the Comcast plan to monitor you in the bathroom,
Right.
streaming from the bathroom speaker.
Oh, I like that one.
All right.
I give that to Enos.
GPEG says a dandelion is a weed, and I say that's just a matter of definition.
A weed is an undesirable plant.
A
It's
weed
not-
is just is something you decide. It's not a category.
I think most people would call a dandelion a weed.
Yeah, but
It doesn't mean it's
I
bad. It just means
redefined
it
the
usually
dandelion
grows.
to be a desirable plant, and now I love my yard. It's full of these.
I mean, isn't
Right,
that
you just
isn't
change
that
your
what an
attitude.
English garden is?
Exactly.
Kind of a little wild with weeds and stuff.
Oh my! I have the best flowers in my garden. They're all yellow and sometimes silver.
I got a bunch of
Throw it
rose
away.
bushes, and this past weekend I took a hedge clipper to a bunch of them.
In hopes that they would flourish.
They
As a result,
they
or-
were flourishing too much, and so
Oh.
much that they were blocking the way, and
Oh.
those thorns are problematic with kids.
Yes, very true. I wish I had a rose bush in my yard.
You want one? I got a bunch.
Well, sure, I'll take one. I don't have a green thumb. I'm okay.
Again,
I'm okay
see-
with plants that are in a pot. Like I can take care of that plant. But when it comes to like planting something in the earth, I don't really know what I'm doing.
I was using aquarium water for a while to hydrate all the plants. I don't know if that worked out.
Why?
Well, I'm always paranoid about putting anything too growth intensive down the sewage line because I have a tree
Oh.
next to the sewage line. For some reason I think they sense it and will try to go after it. So I just dumped it. Plus it's a lot of water. It's like you're talking 10 gallons of water. So I just don't want to throw it away.
Yeah.
So I figured, it smells like poo, might have poo in it, and it's had a fish in it. So dump it in the garden.
Did it seem like
It didn't
was...
kill anything. I will say that.
There you go. Yeah. It's water.
I really like Roger's math on here.
He's like, I had the water, smelled like poo, nothing died, worked out nicely.
I mean, isn't fertilizer just poo? Some other animals' poo,
Well, I don't know.
right?
I
I mean,
mean-
is that what they make it from? No.
Well,
Guess it
some
depends.
I think natural fertilizer is often made, but not all poo is good fertilizer. Depends on where it came from. I would not use dog poo for fertilizer.
No, dogs are terrible for
Yeah.
fertilizing.
Yeah,
But
dog
back
poop is
guano,
just to be
awesome.
avoided.
Well, it's a high amounts of is it not sulfur? It's that's in it.
Digested anxiety.
What's the stuff? Stuff that people will use potash for.
Otis, what's in your poo?
Potassium,
Like, I don't
alkaline
know.
potassium.
Is it potash, not potash? Have I been saying it
Potash,
wrong?
Hold on. What does the internet say?
Potash.
Ooh,
Potash.
Potash.
I don't know if I trust the internet.
very
though.
breathy.
Yeah. Who's that? What does she know? Yeah.
I think
She
she's
was
saying
paid
it
how
before.
much? Potash. I don't know.
Much.
I'm not a farmer. I'm
I
not
just
a
got
man
an
of the soil.
email from Google saying that due to legacy functionality that enabled customer domain admins to view passwords, some of your users' passwords were stored in our encrypted systems in an unhashed format. This primarily impacted system-generated or admin-generated passwords intended for one-time use. We have reviewed the login information for the user account and have found no evidence that the unhashed passwords were misused. The following is a list of users impacted in your domain. Anthology@swordandlaser.com. So our Sword and Laser account we made this email for people to send us their stories when we did the Sword and Laser anthology, and apparently it had it unhashed. So they've changed that password. That's good. But sounds like there was a little security thing they found and stomped
Security. I would like to
Tell
see
you
the
what, folks, I want to give a plug to Security Bits on NosillaCast with Allison Sheridan. Bart Bouchatz joins her and just runs through kind of the medium and higher security issues of the week. And it's a good, you'll hear things, you'll hear him talk about things that we've mentioned on the show, but he'll go into a little more detail and tell you what you really need to worry about. It's really good.
Nice.
Anyway, I didn't mean to bring everybody down with a security vulnerability. How about that potash?
Potash.
Best sandwich.
It's the lifeblood of Saskatchewan and Manitoba, or
Is that one of the main exports of Saskatchewan?
Saskatchewan, not Saskatchewan.
Whatever you said.
Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan. It's
Does
really hard to say
Saskatchewan
this
have
one.
a yearly conference called Saskatchewan?
It should.
No, but I think there is. Or am I thinking of Central Canada Con, which is in is it Edmonton? Or is it Calgary? I don't know. All those middle provinces blur together for me.
Oh well, somebody in
boy.
Canada right now is shaking their fist.
But they're
And
doing it
saying,
politely.
Sorry, but
They're
I'm
doing
mad.
it in a nice way.
Sorry, and that accent's
Sorry.
more Ontario.
By the way, welcome to iHeart Infotech, aka Technology Fangirl, who is now a proud patron of Daily Tech News Show. Just tweeted
Woo, woo,
Flower.
woo, woo.
That's Flower in the Discord who just upped her Patreon.
Good to have you.
Yeah.
Even if you're a dandelion, you're no weed to us.
No, definitely not.
All this
I
talk
keep
of
thinking I should
sandwiches,
eat
I
the
think,
dandelion.
has sealed my fate. I need a big sandwich, which is like I'm not sure I've eaten. You know, there was that Italian deli by my old house. Roger and Tom and we all went there that one day.
It was really good, but so busy.
Really busy. Yeah, it's a whole thing.
Mhm.
But or you just get it delivered. But I don't know of a sandwich place near me, or at least not one that I'm taking advantage of. There's got to be some.
I mean,
actually, that's not true. There's a vegan sandwich place up the street that is delicious. I know it sounds weird, but it's really good. But they're too expensive. It's like a $16 sandwich. I'm like, I want it to be under $10.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
I want it to be like 2 meals.
Even in LA, it should be under $10.
Yeah. Like I want it to be a large sandwich for sure, but anything over $10 is a little crazy.
I'm not filling up my tank. I'm eating a sandwich. Well, I guess I'm
But
filling up
that's,
that tank.
I mean, okay, so that's the only real deli I can think of around here.
Well,
like,
folks, we'll keep thinking.
Yes.
Video folks, thank you for joining us. I know we're a little abbreviated today. I apologize. But audio folks, stick around. There's a little bit more to come before we get going. So thank you for that. Maybe it's me telling about the sandwich shop near me. It's a chain.
What's